Well, hello everyone and welcome back to another Theme Park Obsession video. My name is Dylan and thank you so much for tuning back into the channel. Today I'm going to give you a little behind the scenes look at two of the haunted houses at Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood 2022. They're absolutely beautiful and I cannot wait for all of you to experience them, and I can't wait to experience them with all the lighting and the audio on, because when I walked through, there's just the house lights on and there was still kind of like an active construction site, so things weren't quite finished. But nonetheless, they look absolutely gorgeous. And in today's video, we're gonna go over a few of the things that I saw, and I'm gonna show you some behind the scenes photos. If you don't want any spoilers, I suggest checking out another one of my videos here on the channel. And if you don't like some scary imagery, I suggest watching another video as well, because I will be, again, showing pictures from inside these two haunted houses, La Llorona and the Universal Horror Hotel. It's nothing really gory or anything, but I know some imagery might be a little disturbing. So just as a heads up, and of course, yeah, the spoilers. So if you don't want any of those, I suggest checking out a bunch of my other videos here on Theme Park Obsession. But without further ado, let's get started and dive right in. The first haunted house that we walked through was Universal Horror Hotel, and it's a new haunted house for the 2022 season, and it's based on an original story, an original concept. It's something that we've never seen before at the event, and I love original haunted houses. I hope that Universal Studios Hollywood continues to do more of them in the future, because they're just so spectacular in the sense that you have no idea what's around every single corner because it's something new, it's not familiar. So the first one we did see, though, was the Universal Horror Hotel, and that one is located in the former Walking Dead attraction. So Walking Dead is no longer there, and in its place is this new haunted house. And let me tell you, it is all new. For those that do remember Walking Dead, you might recognize a couple of the hallways, because John Murdy was saying that a few of the hallways are permanent and they're very difficult to demolish, so they just repurposed them in this haunted house. But other than that, Walking Dead is not even recognizable. It's an all-new layout, it's an all-new haunted house, and it actually starts in an all-new area. For those that remember The Walking Dead, the Q space, the don't open dead inside doors, that is where this haunted house starts. And the setting of this haunted house is in the 1920s. And the story goes, Lillian Von Drake, the heiress of the Von Drake oil family fortune, is getting hitched. She's getting married to the love of her life, Maxie DeVille. And with their fortune, Maxie decided to build a luxurious hotel in the Hollywood Hills right below the Hollywoodland housing development. The hotel was met with praise, attracting the Hollywood glitz and glam, and it was well known that that was the place to be. But just a few months into the hotel's luxurious opening, tragedy had struck, and twin sisters Dottie and Dolly Klampendorf were found dead. One in the oven, with their head in the oven, and the other one hanging from a noose in the elevator. It was horrible, and it was an apparent double suicide. But the tragedy didn't stop there, because so much was happening at the hotel that the press even labeled the hotel as a hotel of horrors. Later, Lillian's mother, Mildred Van Horn, was found dead in her room, in the bathroom, in the bathtub. It looked like the radio had accidentally slipped into the water, electrocuting her to death. But it didn't stop there. Lillian herself ended up dying as well in her bedroom in a freak fire accident, and Maxie tried to save her life. And in the process, he ended up getting badly burnt, but he ended up surviving. But with all that, there was so much suspicion with Maxie that the police thought, and really were convinced, that Maxie was the culprit to all of these disturbing deaths at the hotel. So much so that Maxie was put to trial, and after a couple years, they found him guilty of all of those horrible deaths at the hotel. After a massive back and forth trial, again, he was found guilty and sentenced to death, a gas chamber. And on his last day, while in the gas chamber, he went up to the glass and said, "I'll be back." So the hotel has a very disturbing past, and when you're walking through this haunted house, oh, is that Maxie DeVille up there? But as you're walking through this haunted house, you're reliving all of those tragedies, room by room by room, and all of those spirits that once called the hotel home are now seeking their vengeance on you. And you see a lot of the modern day hotel guests that are just completely annihilated. There is a couple gory scenes in the maze, but the maze is not too gory. It's actually more ghostly than anything. And as you walk through the haunted house, you discover the sinister backstory of Maxie DeVille, and the fact that, yeah, he did kill all these people, because one scene in particular is the bedroom scene where Lillian died in that horrible freak fire accident. But on closer inspection, you see the gas cans at the edge of the bed, and you think, maybe this wasn't a freak accident. Maybe Maxie did this on purpose. That room has a very elaborate special effect where the walls disappear and you see those flames and you see the news articles of what had happened. And when you walk into that bedroom, you see Lillian burnt to death on her bed. It's pretty cool. I mean, cool in the sense of haunted houses go, because I love this stuff. But that scene is very gorgeous. And throughout that experience, I feel like it's one of those things that you're gonna want to see multiple times because of the special effect in that particular room, because you walk in and around the bed and you see the burnt body, but then you see the walls disappear and all these visual effects start to happen around you. One of the first scenes in the maze, though, one of the first major scenes, is Mildred Van Horn's death in the bathtub, and you see her pop up from the bathtub surrounded by this water-based fog effect, and I gotta tell you, she looks amazing. This totally gross, decomposing dead body. It's like it's mainly skeleton, but the way that was really designed is fantastic. I mean, the attention to detail just on that skeleton is superb. And she's on a push cart, so she'll appear out of the bathtub through that water-based fog. And that room itself is very well done as well. Throughout the maze, throughout the haunted house, it's very 1920s Art Deco. So you're going to see that. You're going to see some great Gatsby kind of design elements. Also vibes from The Shining, and the audio is going to be reminiscent of that too. So I love that style. I've always been a fan of that, and that's why I really like The Shining haunted house as well when it was at HHN. So this one, the Universal Horror Hotel, definitely picks up off of those same styles and vibes around the 1920s and 30s. And yeah, in that bathroom, they have the beautiful blue tile and the crown molding around the top. It really is a pretty maze. And sorry, I'm going to keep saying maze. I'm still used to saying I'm not used to saying haunted houses at the Hollywood version. But yeah, no, when you continue your journey through the haunted house, that same art style continues. They have these beautiful sconces along the walls and the hallways of the hotel, because yeah, you're just walking through a hotel. And I gotta say, the blind scares are very good. There's a lot of blind corners, so just be prepared. I think this haunted house is gonna be pretty scary. Deeper into the haunted house, you discover more and more that Maxie DeVille was this sinister serial killer that also was a part of some apparent cult, because when you get deeper into the haunted house, you see those cult-like themes start to appear, and you go underneath, you pretty much go underground and through the walls, and you see this armory, and you see all these crazy weapons, and this very sinister backstory show its head. And again, the backstory to this haunted house is so elaborate, and it's very cool. I suggest checking it out. I'll leave the link down below to where you can read the backstory for this haunted house. But yeah, it gets very dark very fast. The entire haunted house is scary, but the more you get into it, the more sinister it gets. There's also some big expansive rooms, so like the owner's suite of the hotel is very large, and that scene's gonna have like 4 or 5 performers that jump out and attack you. It's really intense, and especially walking through the hallways, like I said, there's a lot of blind corners. So overall I think the haunted house is gonna have a good mixture of intense scares and elaborate big sets. So this one was I was very curious about the Universal Horror Hotel, because I wasn't sure how this one was going to play out, but boy, oh boy, walking through this, it's probably going to be one of the most scary ones at the event, really, just because when all the show lighting is on, because we walked through with all the house lights on, but when the show lighting is on, it definitely changes the mood. It gets a little creepier, and yeah, when you're turning these corners, you're pretty much walking into a tragedy, because you're reliving all of these horrible moments that happened at the hotel. The next haunted house that we walked through was La Llorona, and La Llorona is actually a comeback, because we've seen this haunted house before, and it was a long time ago. I was fortunate enough to walk through both versions of La Llorona when it was last at Halloween Horror Nights. I was actually working the event, because remember, I started working Halloween Horror Nights in 2011, so by the time La Llorona came around in 2012, I was able to walk through it, and it was one of my favorite haunted houses that I'd ever walked through, because it was so gorgeous. And leading up to this year, when I found out that we were going to have La Llorona again in Hollywood, I was like, you know what, I hope that the inside of it looks beautiful. And when I did the tour, I gotta say, it is beautiful, just like it was in 2012. They did not chintz on the set design at all. And now, for those of you that are not familiar with La Llorona, it's a very disturbing legend, Hispanic folklore that has been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. She's always described as a tall, thin woman with long black hair, and she's been blessed with this natural beauty, but she has a very sinister backstory. She's essentially the spirit of a woman who was so distraught that she drowned her own children. And I mean, that in itself is already insane. But she drowned her own children and couldn't live with it, so then she drowned herself. And legend has it that she, to this day, continues to walk the rivers and creeks. And you can still hear La Llorona in the distance. You can still faintly see her walking along the river, and you want to stay away from her because she's always snatching up kids, women, and men and drowning them in the river. The story obviously changes depending on the generation and over the course of hundreds of years, but she acts without mercy and hesitation. A very disturbing story, but a perfect one for Halloween Horror Nights. La Llorona has been one of my favorite legends. I'm a huge fan of all these different folklore and legends and myths and stuff, and hopefully one day Halloween Horror Nights will do a haunted house on like a bunch of them, so it's like a mashup, a collage, so to say, of all of them. But La Llorona is so disturbing that, yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense to do it as a Halloween Horror Nights attraction. And upon entering that famous church that we know from previous years of Halloween Horror Nights, which, by the way, that facade was modeled after a church that they saw in Texas. And the reason why they picked that church is because it really looks sinister, because it has two eyes, a nose, and a mouth, and you walk right into the mouth, into the depths of pretty much hell, because it's just so disturbing. And you walk into the maze, into the church scene, where there's going to be some really cool special effects in there with some windows, and then the maze, the haunted house, starts to really get tight and claustrophobic and very dark. So this one is another one that I think is going to be pretty intense. And again, just like John Murdy had said, they wanted to focus heavily on scenic and special effects this year. So just like the Universal Horror Hotel, the scenic design in La Llorona is top drawer. I mean, there was not one black wall walking through. There was like one near the end, but that was like right as you were exiting the attraction. So those are okay. But throughout the entire experience, I mean, it was like, it was beautiful. Like, shout out to the artists that put La Llorona together, because there's so much detail in that material that they use on the walls, that texture, that Santa Fe texture that they trowel onto the walls, and using that joint compound with a mixture of different types of concrete, and then you have the different colors on the walls that give it this old mission style look. It's gorgeous. Now, a lot of fans of Halloween Horror Nights were pretty worried that when we found out that La Llorona was coming back, when Universal announced it, a lot of fans were wondering, hey, are they gonna have that scene where the dead kids are like floating in the river? It's a very disturbing scene, but a very critical aspect to the story of La Llorona, because the story of La Llorona has to do with drowning kids in the river. That's what makes it so scary. And a lot of people were wondering, hey, are you guys going to do that scene? Because it really is an impactful and scary scene that means a lot to the story. And yes, they do have that scene in this haunted house. You walk through the curtain and boom, you're presented with this beautiful facade of a barn, but in front of the barn is this river that will eventually be dyed. The photo that I took, it wasn't the finished product just yet, and John was saying that they're testing out different colors for the water because they want to make it look just right. But there the kids are floating in the water, and the water's not very deep because you don't need a lot of depth to portray that level of storytelling. You just need a little bit and have the water like just there so people go, oh, okay, we're walking over a river. And yeah, even during the day without the lighting or audio or anything like that, it's a very scary scene and a very disturbing scene, rightfully so. But as fans of horror, that's what we want. We want those insane, intense scenes when you're walking through, because that's what makes it so believable and that's what makes it so scary. So you walk through that scene, you go over the bridge, over the water, and you see the kids. You're gonna hear La Llorona weeping and moaning, and it's gonna be something else. For those that remember the 2012 haunted house, it's gonna be the same type of scenario. The scare though is set up a little different, and I'm not not going to spoil it too much, but there's a pretty good scare in that scene that kind of catches you off guard. But then you walk into the nightmare sequences of the haunted house, and this is where the creative team really has fun with their imagination. Yeah, what would La Llorona be like as a child's nightmare? And man, oh man, it's some crazy stuff. One of the main scenes that you walk into is a giant La Llorona that has crashed through this little child's bedroom and is actually eating the kid, and the head of the puppet will move and the child's feet will kick. And that will be a little bit of, it's not going to be a totally gory scene, but there will be some blood right there. John was saying that the blood is pretty much the last thing that they do in a lot of these haunted houses, just because it's really messy. And it's one of those details that, yeah, you don't want to do earlier on, especially when you're still set dressing a lot of the haunted house. But yeah, that scene's going to be really cool because it's, yeah, this massive puppet that will be moving and articulating. And then you go right into another nightmare scene where La Llorona is actually eating another person, but this one, this time it's a live performer, and they got their legs stuck in La Llorona's mouth and they're trying to struggle to get out, and there's going to be some gnarly audio in there. So again, super tight and confining. The rooms are very small, and that's done by design because they want you to be up close to some of these scenes, and it really is spectacular and very scary. And then at the finale, you're hit with one more giant La Llorona puppet that gets right up to you. I mean, it is very close contact. So again, I think this is going to be a very good thrill for this year's Halloween Horror Nights. But yeah, that was pretty much the behind the scenes look at Universal Horror Hotel and La Llorona. They're both beautiful additions to the lineup this year, and I'm so happy that the set design is one of the main focuses of the creative team this year. The company was like, yeah, here's some money and you guys can have fun. And man, oh man, I mean, I am not lying when I say that the haunted houses look amazing. And you all know, those that have been watching my channel for a while, you know that I'm honest about this stuff. And I've said in the past that Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood has had some issues with the black walls, the plain black walls. This year, it's not a thing. This year, we were told, and obviously just judging by the walkthroughs that we were able to do, that the black walls those are dead. And you know what? Thank you so much for that, because as a fan of Halloween Horror Nights, and just horror in general, it's really nice to get immersed into a terrifying environment and not have that distraction of you have some scenic and then all of a sudden it's gone. So this is going to be a very special year, and that's why I've been saying over the course of the past few weeks, just judging by the facades, that I think this is going to be a very good year. And after walking through those two haunted houses, I gotta say, this is some of the best set design that I've seen in years. One particular spot in La Llorona that I think is going to be very terrifying for a lot of people is the catacombs and like the crypt area right after the main church scene. It's very tight, it's very dark, and it's very intense. Like even walking through just with the lights on and during the day, it definitely had the hairs on the back of my neck standing up, because it's very intimidating in that spot. So I think with all the audio and the lighting going, and with the performers in there, that's going to be a very scary spot in the haunted house. It's going to be awesome. But with that will do it for your quick behind the scenes look at some of the attractions for Halloween Horror Nights 2022. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and smash the thumbs up button. And if you're new to the channel and you love these theme park videos, consider subscribing, because I have brand new videos every single week. I have an Instagram account. I'll leave that link down below in the description. Be sure to check that out, because I post updates there that I don't normally post here on the channel. And as always, a huge shout out to everyone that loves and supports everything that I do here on Theme Park Obsession. And of course, a huge shout out to Universal Studios for inviting me out to check out some of these haunted houses before the public. I am so happy to be able to have these experiences and these opportunities. It really is something special, especially for someone who is such a huge fan of all these different parks and everything that they do. But until the next journey, until the next video, I hope you have a beautiful day, morning, evening, whatever it is, and I'll see you next time in the parks. Bye.